Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow.
We filed a case entitled ACLJ, American Center for Law and Justice versus the Department of the State, on June 28, 2016. We were seeking records regarding the doctoring of Iran video, or a press conference involving the Iran deal that our friend James Rosen did, where they took the date out. They just edited out the date of the discussions because they had a narrative, the Obama administration, that in fact the discussions were concerning with the election of Rouhani, who was supposed to be more of a moderate, that this was the time to get into negotiations rather than dealing with Ahmadinejad, who they acknowledged was a radical. Well, in fact, it ended up being that the negotiations for the Iran deal were taking place during Ahmadinejad. So that was bad. We uncovered that. We uncovered the fact that it was an intentional edit. In fact, in our FOIA litigation, as part of a release pursuant to court order, we received a document that was deemed sensitive but not classified that acknowledged that this was an intentional act. It was done by the Public Affairs Office. A technician was told to do it, was not given a reason other than something about Fox News and a reporter. So he took the action and deleted the video to fit this narrative of the president. Well, we now have evidence, and this has been reported widely now, that in fact Iran Air, and this I think is very important, which is a civil commercial aviation that's like American Airlines in Iran, that the Obama administration actually hid intelligence on Iranian militants in Syria going via Iran Air, and lo and behold, Andy Economo, former U.S. attorney,
right.
That was because sanctions were lifted on Iran Air during this whole process.
We're going to lift the sanctions on Iran Air. We're going to permit negotiations between Iran Air and Boeing so that they can facilitate the purchase of more aircraft. And let's also realize that as Representative DeSantis has said, the Obama administration was shipping, and his use, pallets of cash to Iran. I say bushels of billions of dollars, where in exchange for which the mullahs were sending militants, to wage jihad in Syria. And what were they using? They were using commercial aircraft bought from a United States manufacturer.
Yeah, I mean, unreal. And that was because sanctions were lifted. So, Than Bennett, the next question is, what's next here? Who are we holding accountable? Congressmen are already talking about it. Who's held accountable here?
Well, there's two layers. We have to insist that the Congress pressure both the executive branch and then also others to reinstate Iranian Air as in violation of this. Look, and I put it this way. Jihadis were literally flying coach. You can't get a more clear violation than that, and we have photographic evidence. But I would just also back up and say this. On a policy level, Jay, we said from the very beginning that Iran would not comply with this. Now we know that the United States government knew they would not comply with it. Ben Rhodes admitted that. But now we know just how bad it was. It wasn't just about, moving commodities. This was literally about moving jihadi fighters into a region to engage in warfare. Jay, that cannot stand. Yeah. And our lawmakers, our elected officials better pay attention to this because it involves national security to the nth degree.
So, Harry, policy-wise, what was going on here?
Well, essentially, we have deception all the way down. So if you start, for instance, with the video, we had a deliberately edited video, but yet the State Department denied that the edits were designed to hide the Obama administration lies. So that's a clear contradiction right there. Secondly, we have evidence that the State Department and the Obama administration hid information with respect to Iran using the deal, the Iran nuclear deal, as the basis for transferring terrorists, jihadis, to the Middle East to destabilize the region. The Obama administration apparently knew about it. The Obama administration nonetheless continued to promote the Iran nuclear deal. Why? Because the Obama administration was committed to a deceptive narrative all the way down, a narrative that makes no sense.
And we're seeing it. So you're saying, well, that was the previous administration, but Iran Air is used today to shuttle jihadists into the region. Today. So this isn't just old news. This is a policy that you got to relist Iran Air as sanctionable. Obviously, our litigation that now spans a year and a half by activities that took place in 2013 and 14 are having an impact in 2017. So we want you to stay engaged on this, and we need to demand the truth. Now Congress is willing to reinvestigate on this. Treasury may, in fact, impose sanctions. Sign our petition on this right now, ACLJ.org. That's ACLJ.org to sign that petition, or 1-877-989-2255. Again, signing that petition to get to the truth of what was going on here with this Iran deal. 877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org.
It's an unprecedented bureaucratic coup undermining our security. The Obama administration took action to empower the entrenched bureaucracy to subvert our national security right before leaving office. It has led to dangerous leaks, criminal violations of the Espionage Act, and the creation of a shadow government to sabotage the new administration. This dramatically endangers our national security and has led to dangerous classified leaks. At the ACLJ, we're fighting back. We're filing legal demands of the bureaucracy to expose the actions of the corrupt Obama administration, stop the soft coup and the rampant leak of classified information, and protect our national security. Add your name to our new petition to stop the shadow government and protect our national security. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
So what was the Obama administration up to, and why are we now paying the consequence for it even today, as the reports are that in the Washington Free Beacon that Iran Air sanctions were lifted against them in 2013, 2014, now using their airline to ferry jihadist soldiers even as recently as this year because of this change in policy. This is pretty dramatic stuff.
This started before Rouhani was elected. He's not a moderate. This was a deal made in conjunction with Iran's hardliners, and as we're seeing now with how they're behaving, it is benefiting Iran's hardliners.
Well, and it's exactly and precisely what's happened here. So I do want to go to what happens next. So, of course, we're going back to federal court with additional information now, additional requests. But this is Harry said this during the break. The Freedom of Information Act litigation we initiate and we get responses from can, in a real way, impact policy. Why?
It can drive policy because you expose, A, the ineptness, secondly, you expose the lies, and then you identify the individuals, you remove them from office, but you also change the policy. And clearly here, we need to reimpose sanctions on Iran Air. Iran Air is arguably a terrorist organization. So we need to put sanctions back on Iranian Air. And secondarily, we need to impose or reimpose greater sanctions on Iran.
So, Fan, is the reality of that now when we're looking at all this information we've got together? I've got a desk full of this. We've really put an analysis here together, and I think we've really built a solid case, and we're getting real results. But now it's time to get changes, and that's what Harry was just talking about.
Well, on the first point, I don't even think it's arguable anymore about Iranian Air. I mean, we literally have photographic evidence in our hand that they are flying jihadis on commercial air, so they need to be redesignated as a terrorist organization. And, Jay, one of the first things that we will do is reiterate what the Congress is saying, that even the Obama administration, when they were arguing for this deal, said that the United States would retain the ability to redesignate. So that has got to be the first thing that happens, and it can happen at the Department of Treasury. But, Jay, it's got to go beyond that, and this is the part that's going to be up to us. We have to identify the bureaucrats that are still there so that they can quit hiding this information. We can get it all out there, and we can, again, protect the American people.
So, Andy, what I want people to understand, then Logan will take some phone calls and comments. So this is litigation we started last year on activity that took place starting in 2013 and 2014. And someone said, what does that have to do? Why are you talking about the previous administration? Because the impact of those policy changes by that administration are having an impact in 2017, including the ability to utilize the Iran Air to move militants back and forth. Because we think they're just going to Syria. Guess again.
No, they're going to more places than just Syria. If they're using military transport, civilian aircraft to transport, they're using it to more places than just Syria. They're using it to export jihadis and terrorists to every part of the world that they possibly can. And the Obama administration facilitated and promoted that. We need to make them to say that loud and clear. And we have exposed that in our FOIA litigation. And we do that every day that we bring these cases, Jay.
All right, let's go ahead and go right back to the phones. We're taking your calls at 800-684-3110. We'll take some comments as well from Facebook and Periscope. Let's grab a couple calls.
All right, let's go to Jamie in Oklahoma on line 2. Jamie, you're on the air.
Hi, Jamie. Go ahead. You're on.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
I wanted to ask the question. With Iran wanting to literally destroy Israel, I've got twofold question here. And Obama's interference trying to interfere with the re-election of Netanyahu, for one, why would he be wanting to do this, and who was he wanting in for his strategic chess game moves? How does this all play into Netanyahu?
So here's what was happening. He was trying to defeat Netanyahu because he viewed Netanyahu as an impediment to peace between the Palestinians. Except he was the duly elected prime minister of the state of Israel. And in another one of our FOIA cases, we know that money from the State Department, taxpayer money, went to an organization that was basically running the campaign against Benjamin Netanyahu. And that came from your taxpayer money. And then the State Department's response was, well, that was a mistake. So that's number one. Number two, from a policy perspective, they wanted a more left-of-center individual that would not take such a hard-line stance against Iran because, remember, Netanyahu said Iran is an existential threat against Israel. And we have an office in Jerusalem. I do a lot of work. We do a lot of work in Israel. I've talked to military leaders and government officials in Israel, and they will say, with regard to Iran, that the Israelis do not have the option to think that they would go nuclear if they could, the Iranians. That is not an option. So that's the reason why this became so significant. But I've got to tie it right back to today. But that policy impact decision today is having, as Andy just said, real consequences right now.
Yes, they do have consequences.
And we don't know even the extent of those. We know they're having them. We don't know the extent of them.
Well, the consequences of the Obama administration's actions with respect to Israel are being felt today, and that's the truth. And I think it was an outrage which we were able to expose through what? A Freedom of Information Act request that we made, that American taxpayer dollars were being used to defeat Netanyahu in a sovereign election in Israel. And you talk about collusion with, how about the collusion of the Obama administration to defeat the duly elected, ultimately, Prime Minister of Israel?
Oh, they would never call that. You're going to have a special counsel for that one? I mean, you're going to do that? Where the money went directly from the United States State Department to a group that was doing, their activity was trying to defeat Benjamin Netanyahu? So I'm sure people are listening right now saying, it's Sekulow is one of Trump's lawyers. He's saying there should be a special counsel. I don't think you need a special counsel for that. I think the Justice Department should be looking at it. The State Department Inspector General should be looking at it. Right. Because if there's an issue, look at it. All right, let's take another call.
All right, let's just try to get some of these knocked out. Andy's calling in Wisconsin on line 1. Thanks for holding, Andy.
Hey, Andy.
I have a comment, a question, a comment. I wonder how this can't be considered criminal activity, aiding a terrorist group by transferring money, aiding a terrorist group by allowing just these actions that allowed the airlines.
This is the question between, is it a bad policy decision versus criminality? And those are two different scenarios. And I think it's important for us to understand here that in looking at these cases, specifically this one involving Iran Air, involving what was going on in kind of covering up the Iran negotiations, was it criminal, which is a different standard, versus whether it was a bad policy? So I'll go to Andy on the criminality. That's a whole different standard and a whole different approach versus the policy.
In order to be criminal, there has to be a statute that was violated.
And criminal intent.
And we have to ask the question, what is the crime? And the crime involves two elements. The mental element of intending to commit the crime, the willfulness, the knowing, determined nature to violate the law, and an act in furtherance of that. Those two elements make up the crime, okay? And you may say, well, this was a crime, but in fact, what we look at is policy determinations that ultimately end up really facilitating criminal activity.
Because it is a policy here that does facilitate violations of international law, but to turn that into criminal is different than fixing the policy, Harry.
Absolutely. So I think with respect to the caller, I would suggest this. The Obama administration's approach was morally reprehensible, but that in and of itself is not a violation of the law. Number two, I would suggest that the Obama administration's approach was part of an insidious calculus to force Israel to the negotiating table and to grant additional concessions ultimately to the Palestinians, in part because the Obama administration was helping Iran, and Iran was helping who?
Yeah.
Hamas.
Right. And now they acknowledge it, by the way, that they patched up their relationship. You got a comment, Logan?
Yeah, a lot of comments come in. Wayne has just a question. I think a lot of people again ask, do sanctions ever actually work?
So, Than, you're the head of our government affairs. Do sanctions actually work? Sometimes they do. They can get people to the table.
Well, I think more than anything,
But
they identify the.
Go ahead.
Speaking clearly and with clarity is always the right thing to do. Whether or not sanctions alone get a regime like Iran to turn around is another point. I would just say this way. For people to understand this, they need to do two things. First of all, they need to read a little book called Unholy Alliance. You might have heard of it. Yeah. But secondly, you need to look at the entire narrative. Remember, this was an administration that was trying to level the playing field by taking the United States down a notch. We now have clear evidence of that. And Jay, when the United States doesn't operate from a position of strength, this is always where we end up.
We've got a lot more ahead on this. Obviously, our litigation that now spans a year and a half by activities that took place in 2013 and 14 are having an impact in 2017. So we want you to stay engaged on this, and we need to demand the truth. Now Congress is willing to reinvestigate on this. Treasury may, in fact, impose sanctions. Sign our petition on this right now, ACLJ.org. That's ACLJ.org to sign that petition, or 1-877-989-2255. Again, signing that petition to get to the truth of what was going on here with this Iran deal. 877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org.
It's an unprecedented bureaucratic coup undermining our security. The Obama administration took action to empower the entrenched bureaucracy to subvert our national security right before leaving office. It has led to dangerous leaks, criminal violations of the Espionage Act, and the creation of a shadow government to sabotage the new administration. This dramatically endangers our national security and has led to dangerous classified leaks. At the ACLJ, we're fighting back. We're filing legal demands of the bureaucracy to expose the actions of the corrupt Obama administration, stop the soft coup and the rampant leak of classified information, and protect our national security. Add your name to our new petition to stop the shadow government and protect our national security. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
Fascinating program. We're last segment on it. Back to the phones. We'll take comments as well. Let's go ahead.
All right, let's do it. Let's go in order. A lot of people have been hold, so let's see. Rich is on hold from Honolulu, Hawaii on line 3. You're on the air, Rich. Thanks for holding.
Hi, Rich. Go ahead.
Aloha, Jay.
Hi.
First of all, I can't thank you enough for all that you guys do.
Thanks. Couldn't do it without you all.
I totally agree with you that we need to put sanctions on Iran. However, if we do put sanctions on Iran, it's likely that they're going to respond by saying, okay, the nuclear deal is over, and then they're going to start ramping up their nuclear program.
I don't think they ever unramped their nuclear program. Right. Harry, go ahead.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Jay. I think they have continued their nuclear effort surreptitiously. And if you look at the particulars of the Iran nuclear deal, we don't even have the ability to independently verify compliance with the deal.
Right.
So the deal on its face makes little sense.
Yeah, so I don't think they ever went away from it. I think they're still engaged in it. And now letting them utilize anti-aircraft to move people around, and they say Syria, I'm sure it's more than Syria. It's just look, we're living in a world of delusion if we think the Iranians are living up to, quote, the agreement that was never in writing.
Well, I think Harry said in an earlier segment that the greatest thing about Obama is that he was a delusional person, and that's what he was. He was living under some illusion idea that he was going to remake the Middle East without having read the first history book about the Middle East, it appears to me. And now we've got a commercial airliner being used to send terrorists around the world to engage in terrorist activity. We need to do something about sanctioning that airliner.
No, and Than, is that going to move forward? I mean, what would be what has to happen? And then we'll grab another call, Logan.
Absolutely.
Well, this can happen over at the Treasury Department. They do have to compare notes with Congress on this. My understanding, Jay, is that those conversations are already taking place right now. So I think Secretary Mnuchin has taken it very seriously. One other point on the conversation that Harry just had, full compliance with the deal by Iran only pushed their nuclear program out 10 years, and now we know they're not complying. So they're clearly still ramping up that program.
No question about it. So can you get our offices in touch with the Secretary of Treasury and let them know what we've got here and what we found, and let's get a letter over to them urging that Iran Air be placed back on the sanction list.
We'll do it today, Jay.
All right, very good. All right, let's keep going to the phone calls.
Yeah, let's go to Gene, who's calling on line 5 in California. You're on the air.
Hi, Gene.
Hi, Jay. I thank you again for all the things that you're doing uncovering the evil by shining a big light on it. My issue is this. Trump said in his rallies he was going to scrap the Iran deal, and he had the opportunity to do so when it came time to continue the inspections. And this was a big promise that he had in his campaign that he was going to scrap it. Even though we know other countries are involved, the PE8+1, I believe, even though they were trying to get into Iran to do business, how is it now?
Well, you're not going to be able to stop the other countries from engaging, okay? So the other countries, when the so-called deal went through, those other countries are already doing business with Iran. You can't unroll that. But you could say to Boeing, hey, wait a minute, we're not going to allow you to do business with, and we're not trying to be anti-business here, but with a regime that is sponsoring terrorism and utilizing your manufactured good to do that, which is precisely what seems to be happening, Andy, right now with the situation. Again, it's not knocking Boeing. It's just a fact that it's got to be dealt with. If the Iran Airlines is utilizing American created aircraft, in order to shuttle around terrorists, we should not allow that in the United States of America as part of our policy.
That's exactly correct, and I believe the Trump administration is probably monitoring that now that we have exposed it. But it's important to realize that the ACLJ's Freedom of Information Act request and the litigation that we brought have exposed that and have brought it out to light so that we can now see what's going on.
Than already said that Secretary of Treasury Mnuchin they're already looking at this. So we just got to push it forward now. All right, we got to try to grab a couple more calls here.
All right, let's go to Karen in New Jersey on line 6. You're on the air, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, thank you for your work.
Thanks.
And the exposure provided. I have to say, I heard the caller earlier talk about the difference between committing the crime and the policy in place, and how the policy prevents actual crime.
Right. Andy was talking about that.
To occur. But I have to say, we the people, are so very frustrated, and we're frustrated because we ask, how do we prevent future administrations from committing similar crimes via policy against our republic, our Constitution, without any serious punishment, such as jail or something? I mean, kind of civil.
Well, it's not. Again, it's criminality. Andy already said that. I'll let him kind of rephrase it again. It's just we're not looking. Well, I'm going to say we're not looking. To show a criminal case is different than a policy matter or being lied to the American people by officials. That's a different story, and there's no question they was hiding the ball here. They were hiding what was going on. But right now, what we've got to focus on is the actual putting someone in jail on this doesn't solve the problem.
No, it doesn't. And remember, as I said earlier, a crime involves a mental component and a physical component. An act of the mind of knowingly and intentionally doing something, and an actual physical act. And I think what we do is by exposing these corrupt, and I think they are, policy determinations, we facilitate the correction of them. But the ultimate thing is elections. That's what makes the difference. Getting in good people in office who are committed to the American Republic and the Constitution, and rooting out the deep state, which what we're doing every day we file a FOIA request.
That's exactly right. All right, keep
Let's
going.
get Joe in St. Petersburg, Florida, line 4. You're on the air.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, everything. First question is, knowing what we know now with the backroom deals and on the Iran deal, does this maybe shed some light on the non-action of the Syria red line?
That's a very interesting, Harry. That's an interesting question.
That is absolutely great question. And there are two responses. First, the Obama administration still was hopeful of improving relations with Russia. That's number one. And then number two, the Obama administration was attempting to negotiate this Iran nuclear deal. So they did not want to upset either Iran or Russia at the end of the day. And so they were prepared to hide the ball from the American people with respect to Iran's continuing support of terrorism.
All right, let's get the last call in.
All right, Victor in New York, you're on the air.
Hey, Victor, quick, please.
Real quick, guys. Listen, God bless you all. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks.
Real quick, the thing is, we have to, going back to that lady, what she said about the criminality, we have to talk about what President Obama did so we don't make those mistakes again. What he did was, at the least, raising our eyebrows and at the worst, treasonous. What's your opinion, Jay?
I think you got it right now. I think we got to fix policy. I mean, I think that criminality here, this is bad policy decision. So I want to focus on fixing the policy, because what we've established, what they did in 2013 and 14, which we've established in our lawsuits in 2016, are having impact in 2017. And that impact includes utilizing Iran Air, who needs to be re-sanctioned and put back on the sanctions list, to transport jihadists. And I think that in and of itself says why we got to fight hard. And it's exactly what we're doing. That's going to do it for the broadcast today. Let me encourage you to sign on. And we've got a petition up on this. We've got a lot of action happening, as you've seen. So I want to encourage you to go to ACLJ.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. So 877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org to add your name to this petition, demanding the truth on what happened during this whole transaction, during the Obama administration, now having impact on 2017. We encourage you to do that again. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. We'll talk to you next week.
It's an unprecedented bureaucratic coup undermining our security. The Obama administration took action to empower the entrenched bureaucracy to subvert our national security right before leaving office. It has led to dangerous leaks, criminal violations of the Espionage Act, and the creation of a shadow government to sabotage the new administration. This dramatically endangers our national security and has led to dangerous classified leaks. At the ACLJ, we're fighting back. We're filing legal demands of the bureaucracy to expose the actions of the corrupt Obama administration, stop the soft coup and the rampant leak of classified information, and protect our national security. Add your name to our new petition to stop the shadow government and protect our national security. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or you can add your name online, aclj.org.